open job postings, how many recruiters are on LinkedIn available to you at your fingertips if you know how to access them in the right way? 44% of LinkedIn users, well, they earn over 75 grand a year. So what the heck why would I care about that? That should signal to you that high percentage of users are decision makers in companies. These are people who can actually start to affect hiring decisions. You want to be connected to these people. 41% of millionaires are on LinkedIn. I heard this saying, and I've been active on the platform for just a little while now, and I hear this saying over and over again. You can go and hang out on Instagram and TikTok with all the cool kids, but there's this meme that goes around and it says, but all the rich kids are over on LinkedIn using social media to make some money and get great jobs. So the saying goes, the cool kids, they're on Instagram and TikTok, but the rich kids, LinkedIn. So before you start anything on LinkedIn, I want you to ask yourself this, and that is, what the heck am I trying to achieve? This is a good question to ask yourself over and over again throughout your job search. See a little pop-up here, just take a look. There we go. Sorry, guys. All right, so you need to ask yourself what you are actually trying to achieve in order to achieve said thing. It makes sense, right? If you're on LinkedIn because you want to get a job, you should align all the activities that you do to get a job. So for someone seeking clients using the platform, their activity on the platform could look quite different. You know what I mean? So if your objective is different, you're going to act different on the platform from someone who has a different set of objectives. Okay, you need a profile that stands out. We've talked about this before. We're going to make sure that you have that access to the earlier webinar where we talked about creating a profile that stands out. I'm going to give you a few quick things. Like, you need to exist on LinkedIn, so you need to have a profile, and you absolutely need to have a profile that is loaded, jam-packed with keywords so that recruiters can find you. Think of LinkedIn as a search engine if you're using it as a job seeker. What are the words that the recruiter is actually typing in that search bar when they're seeking out talent for their company? Here's a clue. They are not saying, I have this amazing entry-level position in marketing. They are not seeking things like, they're not rather searching things like currently seeking opportunities. They're looking for specific skills that are going to match the requirements for the job. Okay, and you can get all the details on that earlier webinar about creating a profile that stands out so that you can impress recruiters. Before you ever go and network on LinkedIn, you must have a profile on LinkedIn that looks good. You want to have a profile that looks good before you start actively engaging on the platform. Because the whole point of engaging and networking on LinkedIn is to get people to go to your profile and hopefully inbox you and say like, hey, I have this cool opportunity or an internship or a job or whatever. You want them to go to your profile, and you don't want them to be like sadly disappointed when they arrive there by some sort of blank screen like that no profile picture, no information. You have an opportunity to be super, super impressive from the get-go on that profile. Here are 5 ways that you can actually start to like leave the safety of your own profile where you are just creeping on people on LinkedIn. I know you're doing it. You're like just going and looking, browsing around, and then you're like, I don't know what to do. I gotta leave. Here's how you can actually use the platform to advance your personal brand and to advance your career. So here's where we are. You have a profile set up. It is a beautiful profile. I go over, I look at you, oh my gosh, look at all the qualifications and experience. So you've got all of that foundational stuff set up. Number one, think of the profile as, you know, on Instagram, how you can have a private account. Obviously, you can kind of hide yourself. That's all in the settings. So LinkedIn has different functionality in terms of how you appear, but it's the same idea. So make sure that your settings are right, because one surefire way to never ever get discovered by a recruiter or get a contact come to you from outside of your network is to have an account that's private, which kind of defeats the purpose of being on a site for the purpose of networking, right? So you want to first of all let recruiters know you are open, and you signal this in your settings. I'm going to show you right here. So if you go to your LinkedIn profile, this is me. You go up to this me section. There's all these beautiful settings in here that you can start to play with. So check in on your settings and make sure that you're actually set up to appear in searches that recruiters are running. This is just a miss over and over again for job seekers. You're never going to show up in searches that recruiters are running if you don't have this setting right, okay? You want to make sure your job seeking preferences that you're going to click are set to let recruiters know you are open to opportunities. So you can see in here that there are some different settings that you can play with. I certainly understand there are times where perhaps we already have a job, or we need to be a little bit more private, or what have you. I'd encourage you, go in this screen, play around with your settings, and get comfortable with knowing that these settings have an impact on how you show up in the platform, okay? And what you'll find is once you start to play around, it's a pretty friendly platform. It's going to make suggestions to you. LinkedIn's going to be like, hey, if you do this, your boss is going to see you're looking for work. We're going to try to hide it from them, but that's not always necessarily going to be the case. And then you need to make that decision. But at the end of the day, having these settings right is key, because if you don't, you're only really using LinkedIn for job seeking to half of its potential. Now remember, there are two ways to find employment on LinkedIn. One is by actively going and looking on their job board where all those open positions that I mentioned are posted. And the other way is to actually go out and engage in the feed. I know, scary. Engage in the feed, meet new people, and then start to get discovered by recruiters. So there are two ways to get jobs. One is by actively going and applying to existing postings, and the other way is by having those opportunities come directly to you because you're doing such a great job engaging on the platform. So make connections. I'm gonna go crazy here and actually recommend that you send like 10 to 20 connection requests if you're in an active job seeking mode. Ultimately, what you need to decide to do when it comes to getting new connections is you got to figure out what is reasonable in terms of the time you have. Now, if you are someone who is very committed to growing their professional network right now today, target 10 to 20 connection requests. Here's the way you're going to go and target people that you're going to add to your network. First, you're going to go and you're going to start sending connection requests to people that you know. That's easy to do. You're like, hey, I met you at this event. I know you from school. You're a prof. You're from the alumni. You're the girl that did the webinar. Whatever the case is, you know these people. It's a little bit easier to send a connection request. The second group of people that you can go out and actively connect with is people you share something in common with. So you'll notice on LinkedIn, the platform is always telling you, it's like, hey, you and Shauna, you graduated from the same school. So what if you clicked on all the people that graduated from that same school and started sending some connection requests? This is so uncomfortable for some people, and I totally get that. But once you start to actively grow your network, that's when your possibilities of getting that inbound request for your skills, for your talent, for whatever, starts to come to you, because you've actually got a network that has a need for your specific skills, experience, or whatever that major achievement is that impresses them, brings them in to your profile, and you're in a much better situation to actually have a recruiter come to you versus you go to them. Now, when it comes to sending connection requests to people on LinkedIn, it is really, really important that you add a personal note to the connection request. I'm going to walk you through a screen here. So, so when you go and you see someone and you're like, hey, there's Shauna, I'd like to connect with her. There's an option that comes up that will ask you if you would like to add a personal note. Your answer to that question every single time, the answer to the question, would you like to add a personal note, every single time is, yes, I would like to add a personal note. Okay, you always want to add a personal note. Your odds are so far increased of someone accepting your connection request. But not only that, think of LinkedIn as like your office, and you wouldn't just sort of blindly approach someone in that sort of way and say like, hey, let's connect. We've got nothing in common. I don't know what my objective is in this connection. I don't know what I want from you. I don't know what you want from me, but let's connect. It makes no sense. So good news for you. I wrote all the connection requests for you, and I'll send them in follow-up to this call. So you can literally copy and paste a really nice professional connection request that you can start to send out to these 10 to 20 people that you're connecting with every single day. So this is how you're going to look for suggestions. This is a little bit blurred out for privacy reasons, but the way you're going to look for connections is on this tab of your LinkedIn account where it says My Network. For starting out, probably the best thing to do is to look and see what LinkedIn is recommending you do. So it's going to say, hey, you might know these people just like every other social platform does, but for some reason it's like way more freaky on LinkedIn. I don't know, because we don't know what to say. But you need to go to My Network and then look for the connections that LinkedIn is recommending to you. This is a really, really straightforward way to start to build your network. I want you to remember that you're not going and building your network for the purposes of being spammy and saying like, I need a job, please hire me. No, this can be sort of a slow burn. If you start to build your profile now, if you start to build your connections now, you start to build those relationships now, today, maybe that turns into a job tomorrow. Maybe that turns into a job a year from now. We just don't know. But what we do know is being super spammy is a serious no-no on LinkedIn. So can you comment on LinkedIn? Number 3, my tip number 3 is to comment on LinkedIn, and this is gonna freak people right out too, I know it. But there is so much opportunity for you to engage with things that people are posting, and I want you to understand that there's some real power in that, in terms of building your own confidence as you're working to establish yourself as an expert. Build your own confidence to go and engage with professionals on a networking site that's full of professionals, and then to see that feedback come back, because you're going to get positive feedback, because people love to engage and they love to have thoughtful conversations on posts on LinkedIn. There's going to be real benefit to you starting to get visible in the news feed. And really the way to start with getting visible in the news feed is by going and commenting on other posts. What I'm not talking about here, what I am absolutely not talking about here is Shauna posts something and then you go in and you go, great post. That has done nothing for you. What I want you to do is add a couple of lines of real thought to that post. I want you to go in and comment on that post and add value from something that you experienced that was similar to this. If I say, here are 3 things that you can do to look really great on LinkedIn, why don't you go in and offer up a fourth in a positive way? If you're sitting there and you're thinking, but I'm a student, I don't know anything about anything, all these people are professionals, I just want to tell you, you are just plain wrong. You have something to offer in this platform. You have had really great experiences throughout your education journey. You've had experiences in part-time work. You've done things like built websites. You've built a brochure. I don't know. You have done stuff. You have value to add through your own experiences right now, today. I know it. Think about this for a second. Typically, anyone is considered an expert if they're 10% ahead in their journey on something than you are. So, as an example, if I built a website and you haven't built a website, I am an expert in websites compared to you. Fair? So I am now equipped to lead you along that piece of the journey that you haven't experienced yet. You are an expert in some things, okay? And even if you're not an expert, why not chime in and ask for clarity on a post that you found really interesting? Why not ask a question? By commenting on LinkedIn, you are equipping yourself to be seen as a thought leader on the platform. You're increasing your visibility. Your new connections are like, man, he's got his stuff together. Look at him engaging on here. And that was a great piece of advice, a great piece of insight rather. It is time to start commenting. If you can, comment 5 times a day. I know. So you're doing like 10 to 20 connection requests. You're commenting 5 times a day. What's crazy is you could probably accomplish all of this in like an hour. In like an hour, you could really start to grow your networks. Post. Can you post on LinkedIn? Anytime you're posting or commenting, you want to align that stuff with your desired career path. I'm an HR person. I am not even going to try to go out there and post about engineering. Not a chance. There's no value to me. There's no value to my network, and it's a disaster. It's just a disaster for me. So what I'm going to do is share really interesting things, insights that I might have myself about HR or an experience I had with a client, and I might create a post and share my own experience firsthand. But the other great way to post is to share things that other people have created, to go out and find a really interesting article. You're probably reading interesting articles every day right now as part of your studies. What if you took an excerpt from that and shared it on LinkedIn? You need to add some of your own perception to that post, a nice introductory paragraph that explains the gist of this post and why you think it's important or what you think is wrong about it or whatever. Think of unique things that you can post to the platform. This increases your visibility. This increases your credibility. And imagine if you could have a presence on this platform that by the time you were graduating or 2 years into your career, you were literally seen as a thought leader in your field. I have actually seen people achieve this on LinkedIn. And I want you to follow up. Number 5, I want you to follow up with what you're doing on the platform. Something that is so super, super powerful is you post something, say you post something and people start to engage with your post and leave you a comment or whatever. What does it feel like to build a relationship with someone off of that comment where you say, hey, I really appreciated this, this, and this you said about this thing I posted, and you send them an inbox message. You are building a relationship with this person. There is no reason why right now today you cannot start to build relationships with people who are in roles that will be that are hiring, who are in recruitment roles, who are leading companies. There is no reason you cannot start to do that today by starting to engage actively on the platform. So you've got this beautiful LinkedIn profile. You're like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go out in the world. I'm gonna start commenting on posts. You're gonna get visible that way. From there, you're gonna start posting your own content. You're gonna post content that's aligned with your desired career path. Because, oh my gosh, you are all of a sudden seen as a thought leader. in your space. And you haven't even graduated school. Ta-da! It's the power of building a personal brand and an online presence. If you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A now. I'm just going to wrap up in a minute here. And I just want to remind you, this is much more than just job searching. Job searching is much more than going and applying to a job board and like sending a note to a recruiter that says, I need a job. A much more effective approach to finding work today, tomorrow, your next job 2 years from now or 4 years from now, whatever the case is, the most effective way to start finding these opportunities is to lay a foundation, and that foundation needs to be stemmed in a relationship. You can start to build relationships on this platform by engaging in really, really meaningful ways with the right people who can really, really affect your career direction. So connect with me on LinkedIn with a note. You're going to add a note, right? Because we got that from we're always going to add a note in our connection request, because we're building a relationship. Let's build a relationship. Practice here. I am going to post something on Friday morning. If you want to watch for it, I am going to support you. I'm going to support you through your very first comment, I'm betting, on LinkedIn. So watch for my post that's going to go out on Friday morning. Leave me a comment and I will engage with you and we can start to practice that way. And as promised, I'm going to deliver to you some templates that are your connection requests. So these are literal copy-paste examples that you can use to start to engage with people inside your network, people that you share something in common with, and people that you've never even met before. You'll just be able to copy and paste those. These templates will be delivered to you after the webinar. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
That was awesome. I took some, I mean, I'm not even looking for, I guess it's not a platform for just job searching because I'm not looking for a job, but I have some great tips. Thank you.
Yay, thanks, Mary.
A couple of questions came up. One of them, and you might have addressed this a bit too, in terms of approaching recruiters, it's a really kind of an uncomfortable thing when you're trying to put a request out to an unknown recruiter. So it's somebody that you know might be working for a company who's a recruiter, but is it really just simply saying, you know, hi, my name is Mary Duffley. I just graduated from UNB and I would be very interested in working for XYZ company that you work for. I mean, they don't know.
Yeah, so usually the most effective approach is going to be, if you can start thinking of a cold connection request, is tell me what is in it for me as the receiver of the message versus making it about you as the person who needs a job, right? So instead of, hey, I just graduated from UNB and I need a job, I would really encourage you to go and do a little bit of research about that company. And wouldn't it be cool if you could go and find, I don't know, maybe there is a job posting that tells you that there's a deficit, like in terms of a marketing skill. Maybe you can run some searches on social media and learn a little bit about some of the challenges that the company is facing. What if in your message you said, hey, I see that the companies have this history and challenge of recruiting marketing students. I recently graduated from UNB. Can you ask the recruiter to meet you on Zoom? Always have like a specific ask of the recruiter. So I think a lot of the time we throw it out there and it's like, hey, I'm Shauna and I need a job. And we do this thing that we should just never do. We go, keep me in mind for this position.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that recruiter gets like 300 applications for some of those jobs. What can you do to differentiate yourself from those other people? And the way to differentiate yourself is to get detailed and specific, know something about the company, know something about the recruiter, and dig into that and make sure to highlight that in the message. A really ineffective way is to keep me in mind for this position.
It's really good. I think the idea of sort of taking that next step and asking for, you know, a Zoom meeting. I mean, you know what? It's bold. but you know what? It may very well work. So I think that's a really great tip. Another question was about if you're already connected to a recruiter, so you've reached out, you've made a connection, and you've had maybe a couple of conversations, but now you're sort of in the market of looking, how do you restart that conversation? Is it just a matter of saying, you know, to your point earlier of just, you know, talking about the company, or maybe where you are now currently was different than when you first connected with that person, or how do you restart that conversation?
So again, I'd say 100% with some specifics. Instead of saying, you know, I'm looking for a job again, I want you to tell me, what job are you looking for? It's so for me personally, it's very difficult when I get messages on LinkedIn. It's like, hey Shauna, I'm looking for work. Can you keep me in mind for this position? I don't know what position you're looking for. I don't know what your timeline is. I know nothing. So it's really difficult for me to help. So if you have a relationship with that recruiter, a more effective way to reach out would be to say something like, hey Mary, I'm currently in the job market looking for an entry-level marketing position. I've just completed my my undergraduate degree in business, and ask them for something specific every single time, just like I said before. Are you available for a quick call on Tuesday at 9? Literally, it's very uncomfortable, but that is the way that you start to build relationships, and you start to actually see some progress because you've got relationships out there. So ask them for something very very specific.
Awesome. I love this question because I do it all the time and I don't think I'm creepy. Is it creepy to go through people's profile and browse them before connecting? I mean, yes, of course you do, right?
Yes,
I mean, that's the way you find out more about them. I mean, I go through them. I'm looking for UNB alumni to connect with, etc., or I'm looking for someone who's working in a particular area. Yes, I think, and maybe I'm incorrect, Shauna, but I think, yes, you definitely should creep people.
I think you 100% should creep people.
Yeah.
It does a couple of things. Like, so I don't know the exact number right off, but it's like, I feel like it's somewhere around online, someone has to have like seven sort of different interactions with you before they see you as credible online. Yeah. And I would actually count that as one interaction, because it does something to the brain. When it's like, oh, Shauna was just creeping on my profile, and now you're engaging on my post, that increases my visibility. I don't think there's absolutely anything wrong with creeping profiles on LinkedIn. I think the reason that people are on LinkedIn, for the most part, is to gain some sort of visibility and build their networks. And I think it's a really savvy move to go out, seek people out, and see their activity. We'll see what they're up to on LinkedIn, because you might be able to like jump on and say like, hey, they posted this really cool thing. I'm going to engage on it and then send a connection request to them. And you've already done a little bit of groundwork for building that relationship through the creep, through finding what they posted or whatever. I say do it.
I mean, when you get those reports, because you can see on your site, I'll get certain notifications that I've had 20 people looking at my profile. It's flattery. I'm thinking people are looking at my profile. And if you're creeping on it, listen, keep going. I think that's a really great thing to do.
Creep away. So I actually use profile views as a metric for myself and clients, because the profile views tell, like, that number tells you a couple of things. One, if you're looking for a job and you have 0 profile views, that should signal to you that there's something wrong with your profile. You're not showing up in searches, right? So you need to go in and fix some of your keywording. And if your profile views are 0, you're not engaging. You're not engaging on the platform. Yeah. So you're never going to get that inbound interest that I talked about.
For sure. Another question is about what advice would you provide for older, more mature students who are trying to create more of a brand, to appear as thought leaders when we might be regarded as past our prime in a career employment sense?
Yeah,
so past your prime.
You're never past your prime.
No.
You're never past your prime, no matter what. Like, so I would say for sure reframe that, because if you're feeling you're past your prime, I would encourage you to say, are you maybe off purpose in your career, and do you need to rethink that? Okay, we're not past our prime. But some of the key ways that that you can really start to build that personal brand is we covered a lot of those in our initial webinar around like building your profile, which to me is the foundation of this whole thing. You have to have a really, really good profile, and having that profile well done allows you opportunities to showcase your work, and to show employers what you've done versus tell employers what you've done. So showing them is much more powerful. So if you're more senior in your career and you have things that you've created and reports, and I don't know what you've got in terms of a portfolio, but think about showcasing that work, because you're now at an advantage because you've got that to showcase. But much like a student working to build their network, I would give the exact same advice to someone who is more senior in their career, if they haven't been active on LinkedIn, and that is to get out there. There's a real fear factor on this platform around engagement. And it's the best place to engage, because nobody does, because they're all scared. So as soon as you do, it's like, bam, you get huge visibility. So if you are feeling that anxiety, just start off slow, get confident in the profile that you've built on LinkedIn, and start commenting. You don't have to go out and post right away. Your commenting is going to drive profile views. If you're driving traffic to your profile and it looks awesome, you're driving a positive personal brand also.
A final question, I think, before we finish off is, which is a really good question. Should our posts be professionally based, or should there be a little sprinkle of personal in our posts? We got to be really careful that we don't cross a line.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, because there's kind of like two schools of thought on this. So number one, I would say if you're in part of my brand, I want to be approachable and personal, and approachable, and share some aspects of my personal life, because of the nature I do. I need to be human. So that's a conscious decision that I make, to share some of those personal pieces on the platform. I do it in a very controlled way, because I feel like, my 3-year-old potty pics don't have a place on, they don't have a place on LinkedIn. So I would actually say, what are you trying to achieve on the platform? I would go way back to the, guys, can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My earbuds died. So I would say go way back to that piece on asking you what your purpose is on the platform. If you are solely on LinkedIn to seek a job, then I don't know that that there's really a place for some aspects of your personal life. But I say, if you're seeking like a creative type job and you wanted to showcase, I don't know, some of those aspects of your life, or art that you had done, or whatever, a little bit of your personality for the reasons of the job that you're seeking, then bring them in. There is literally no hard and fast answer on this one. I've seen influencers on the platform really do both. Some people do nothing to share any personal information on them, and I believe it's an intentional choice that's aligned with their brand and their objectives on the platform. And some people do bring in little bits of personal components to the platform. And then also, when we get into roles of leadership roles, like, you know what, it's
it's almost irresponsible to not share some of our own personal views on things, because at that point in our career, I would expect us to have them and to stand for something and to have a position. So I think if you're struggling with, do I share something personal? Do I not share something personal? Ask yourself, what the heck do I want to achieve? And does sharing something personal help me achieve that goal? If it does, share something personal. If it doesn't, skip it.
Because I think too, I think the personal thing, because obviously sometimes if companies or recruiters are looking at you, they're looking to see whether you're a good fit for the company. So it's not just about your credentials and your skills, it's also about your personality, and it's about your beliefs and whether or not they feel that you would be a good fit. So sometimes, you know, sharing a bit of personal is not a bad thing, because they can tell a little bit more about who you are as a person.
Yeah, for sure. I can give you an example too of how that would play out really nicely. Would be if, you know, say you're applying to a company that's very focused on, and you know, because you're applying to the company, you've done proper research, and you know that they're very committed to health and wellness, as an example. You know that's like a core value for them, and you're like, geez, I'm really involved in CrossFit or whatever it is. That might be a worthwhile share to be noticed by that company. But we just always need to be doing that check and go like, what am I trying to do here? And does it help me? Does it help me achieve that purpose?
If somebody's asking about what do you put in about the, what's good about the about me section, what they should put in that particular section. If they're still a student, do you mention that you're still a student? Even if it's your last term. So what is that about me? What do you put there? That would be the best description, I guess.
Yeah, keywords. Your whole profile is, if anyone knows anything about search engine optimization and how the Google engine works and all these things, it's all about showing up in searches. That's what you want to have happen here. So I can't point to a specific time in my professional background recruiting where I would have said like, what I really want for this entry-level position is someone who graduated from school yesterday. So I'm going to search for a student. Like, not a real common search term. There's going to be exceptions. There's going to be recruiters looking for co-ops and internships and all these things. There's exceptions. But for the most part, for your full-time gig, I'm probably not searching for student. The single best way to make use of that headline and that about space is to go seek out your dream job description, go find a couple of versions of it, find the words that are in common, load your profile with them, right? Load your profile with the words that are in common. You're going to find them mostly in the qualifications section. So look to that qualifications section and then match up those qualifications with your qualifications and populate that. That's how you get the power of showing up in searches. Did you know, like, LinkedIn is if you Google yourself right now, it's going to be the first thing that shows up in the search result is going to be your LinkedIn profile.
And I think that's a really good, Google yourself.
Yeah.
It's a good tip is to Google yourself. Google yourself. Just the last question, and really it's about your first comment about, you know, obviously there's been lots of attention of late about what's happening in the States and certainly obviously in Canada. So, you know, what about posting opinions that might be controversial, or, you know, if you have particular, you know, views about some religious views or certainly the Black Lives Matter movement, how much do you put on there? Like, how much do you share?
I think that it really does go back to what you're trying to achieve on the platform every single time. If you do share a controversial point of view online, and this is a point of view that's very aligned to your values, and you say to yourself, I'm never going to work for an employer that doesn't believe this, have at her. If you have that flexibility and that sort of power in your life that you can outright refuse employment opportunities because they're not aligned with your values, do it every single time. If you do post a controversial perspective, however, and you're maybe looking for work at a more traditional type employer, I just caution you, because those employers are typically a little bit slower to adapt to change. And so you might feel a consequence of that in a recruitment process. So it's really up to you. I will tell you this. I have never posted a controversial thing on LinkedIn or Facebook in my entire career until last week.
Yeah.
I literally
there's a time when, and maybe it's a time, maybe you got to be concerned about where you are. If you're just looking for your first job or your first real job, you maybe want to be a little bit, you reach a point in our lives, in our age, I guess, that we can take that risk. So be careful about, be willing to take the risk. If you're willing to take the risk, be willing to take the consequences of that risk sometimes. So.
Yeah. For sure. I mean,
just a couple of questions. We're getting lots of engagement, and this is a really good question. And you know what? How can you distinguish yourself if you have a common name? So, what if you're Mary Smith, and people are looking for Mary Smith? How do you distinguish yourself? Do you put your middle name? Do you how would I stand out as a Mary Smith when a recruiter is looking for a Mary Smith?
I'd probably do a couple of things. One would be, okay, when you have your name on LinkedIn, there's you can picture kind of those two lines that go right under your name.
Yes.
And LinkedIn's going to default to whatever your current employer is or whatever, and fill in those words. I would still use, I wouldn't include a middle name or anything, because if I'm searching for Mary Smith, I wouldn't know the middle name anyways. I feel like it's maybe not the greatest approach to appear in those searches. But what I would do is be sure that my headline says very clearly what I do. Because, it's a common name. So, you know what? Maybe there are two Mary Smiths who are, involved in alumni associations and academia. Maybe there are. But pretty likely that you're the only Mary Smith that knows how to optimize her LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
So I would do it that way. I would also make sure in my profile, there's your profile photo, and then there's also the banner itself.
Right.
If you're feeling real keen on personal brand and you want to build yourself a logo, have specific colors, use specific fonts or whatever, a great way to stand out is to do something with the banner, because again, a lot of people don't, and a lot of times when they do, they look pretty yucky. So if you can stand out that way as well, I think that's an effective tool. Keep in mind also that headline is so important because it follows you everywhere on LinkedIn. It follows you every time you comment. It's not just Shauna Cole commented. It's Shauna Cole, career coach. It says those first couple words, it follows you everywhere. So make sure it's super clear, because you want people to click on you and be like, oh my gosh, you are a marketing expert. I'm going to click on you and go check out your profile.
Yeah. We had a comment from a recent graduate who's also a mature student, and she's returning to the workforce. She doesn't necessarily have a focus like the ideal career job that she wants. She just wants to find something that's going to start to build her career. So she doesn't really know what her dream job is. So how do you kind of focus into finding just that first job?
So I think that we always need to start with the end in mind. We need to be realistic also and know that end might change over time. So for me, this is really important. It's really important that you have the foundation and you know what your goals actually are. So I would say if you don't have a focus, I would encourage you to take a step back and say, you got to find a focus and get clear on what your goals are. I would liken this to, if I was going to go out and do a marketing campaign and I was going to spend $10,000 on Facebook ads, it would be really, really irresponsible of me to invest my time and money in Facebook ads without knowing what I want the outcome to be.
Right.
Likewise, I think it's maybe not the most responsible decision to invest time and attention into a personal brand, LinkedIn profile, building a network, and doing all these things without knowing what you want the outcome to be. So I think it's really important that you do clear it up and figure out what that goal is. It's like, if you want to be the chief financial officer at some point, what is that dream? There's steps to get there, and you can sort of work your way back.
Might I suggest, I'm not sure if this individual, this recent grad, participated in the first session, the Career Clarity session with Shauna. If you haven't, reach out to Shauna directly and she'll send you the presentation, because it might help you to kind of define what it is that you want down the road. So yeah. Yeah,
that's great. So, and you'll be able to get me too, because you'll, later on today, you'll get an email from me.
Yes.
So just reply to that email and I can set you up with that.
So thank you for all those questions for those people who tuned in. If you do have additional questions that you want to ask Shauna, again, she will be sending a follow-up this afternoon, so feel free to reach out to her. Again, reach out to her on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's surprising to me, to Shauna's point earlier on about sending a personal message to connect. The majority of my connections, probably 90% of them, do not send a personal message. I meet a lot of people because I've worked in alumni relations for UNB for more than 27 years. So it's important sometimes to say, listen, I participated in the webinar today. I would really like to connect with you. It really gives us a sense of how we know you, because I hope you reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And think about that connection that you have with UNB. You might be a current student, you might be a recent grad, you might be just a grad of last week. So connect with the people who share that common connection with you. UNB alumni love connecting with fellow UNB alumni. So there's a great way to build your network right now, is to connect with UNB alumni. And certainly, please feel free to connect with me. Just before we finish, I just wanted to remind folks that we have our final webinar next week, same time, 12 noon Atlantic. It is a panel of 3 HR professionals. Shauna is going to moderate, so she obviously will share her expertise, but there'll be 3 other alumni professionals. We have Chris Mahar from JDI. We also have Tanya Chapman from the Chapman Group. She has been had tremendous history in HR and now runs her own consulting company. And Sean Quinlan, who's in Fredericton and works for Skillsoft. A tremendous amount of experience with those individuals who can answer your questions about how to navigate this, what might be a new normal in terms of job searches, et cetera, as we move through this pandemic. So please feel free to join us. Hope to see you or to connect with you or have you tune in next week. Thank you to Shauna for hosting today and for all of her expertise these last 3 sessions. We look forward to having you guys next week. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or send me a message if you have particular questions. And that's all. This will be recorded. We're going to stop the recording and we'll share this. If you want to take another view, you missed something, and you want to take another view. So we'll share this out as well afterwards. Any last words, Shauna? Anything that you wanted to add?
Nope. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much for the great questions, and take care.
Great engagement.
Not exempt, quote, make positive change in the world, you know.
Yes, positive, be kind to one another for sure. Thanks all, have a great afternoon.
You too.